Okay, so we're just waiting for Chris to try and get Kurt in. If he doesn't do that within another minute or so, we can go ahead with the reg meeting. I wanted Kathy on because she's an important part of this section that we're reviewing. Someone just joined us? No? Okay. Did someone just join us?
I think it's just incoming emails because folks are on audio, so.
Yeah, I sent Kirk another invite. Yeah.
Okay. All right, I've got my email going. I told him we were working on it, so let's see. I think we're going to go ahead and get started. Always short on time for the reg meeting, so. Kathy, is Kathy on the line?
It's 12 o'clock. We can start with the education committee meeting, right?
We can, well, we're going to do the regs committee meeting first. That starts any meeting. I changed the time as the board requested to 12 o'clock. So anytime we finish any one meeting, there's no lag time. We can just start the other meeting because it's listed as all meetings starting at 12 o'clock. Okay, so on the reg meeting, again, I was hoping Kathy would join us. This, as you know, is 309, the continuing education section. This is the last draft that I have found for August 2016. I thought we would tackle it next because it has a bunch of, as you can see, changes and edits, and we need to work through those. The other thing is last fall I volunteered to further define alternative learning format, which is under 309 section 10. And so I thought that we could start, if you look at the section that I highlighted on page 1. A webinar is defined as, and so those are the sections that I wanted the regulations committee members to take a look at. This draft, by the way, includes input from everyone, including Wendy Rundle from the LSPA. And I just wanted to start by saying alternative learning format seems a little dated now, because almost all meetings are online or virtual. And so I wanted to figure out how we define them, because online can include audio, animation, live chat. And so I think we need to further define those things. Any suggestions?
So the first thing that sort of struck me, because I think when we first started on this is one of the first sections we tackled with Kathy early on, and I think since then sort of our practice has evolved a little bit, and it seems like we really need two definitions for. I think the webinar definition is good, but I think we need a separate definition for a non-live, a not live online course, because we have different requirements for the polling questions versus the assessment of learning. and classifying them all as ALF, I don't think works anymore, because later on in the regulations, we talk about requiring an assessment of learning for all ALF classes, but that's not necessarily the case, because for the live webinars, we're just asking for the polling questions.
Right. And so that's why I selected this, because we have in practice, excuse me, distinguished between online and webinar. So I think we need to flesh those out. Online are still virtual classes. They're offered over the internet. So I don't know whether or not anyone else has anything to add to those definitions. I think Jamie just gave a good synopsis of where we are with this.
This is Debbie. What if we change ALF to online course and flesh out this definition?
Okay, ALF is now is deleted, and we're going to talk about online courses. That's the broad category you're suggesting, Deb?
Yes, and I think it works pretty well if we just take out webinar and then webinar is defined below, because it, like Jamie said, it further along in the regulations, there's a distinction between the requirements for online course and a webinar.
Okay,
I've got
go ahead, Farouk. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
I've got a suggestion on this. Well, it's just a thought. In the regulations, if you put a broad structure in there, where it's either alternative learning or online, broad structure where we say that if it's not a classroom one that we traditionally had, then there would be other ways of evaluating those courses, and leave it at that, so that we have the flexibility, and then the board will have policies. For webinars, we will do polling. For on-demand classes, we will require tests at the end, assessment of learning. If it is some kind of a hybrid other form, because things are moving pretty fast, then there may be some other requirements that we'll put in. So I was thinking something in that line.
Well, on-demand courses is yet another form of online, which means that it's accessible at any time. The other thing that you said, Farouk, about the assessment of learning, I think that we need to include in this definition that an assessment of learning is required, and also that a way to monitor attendance is required. I don't have the language for that yet, but I'm sorry, I'm taking notes. By the way, this meeting, regulations meeting, is being recorded. Deb, you had a comment.
I just wanted to say that the requirements for the ALF courses is in Section 8 as far as assessment of learning. So I think this first part is definitions, and then it refers later to the requirements. And I feel like the requirements need, we have almost a year of experience with online and webinars, and I think we know what the requirements are, and they're not that difficult to articulate in the regulations. I think they need to be in the regulations. I don't really see that we need to generate policy with a lot of flexibility. I think we know it's assessment of learning and polling and what we've been doing for the last year. I guess I'd like to see them in the regulations.
Me
which
too.
which they are, which we've been following for the past year or so.
So what page are you on, Deb, when you talk about?
I don't want to get ahead of
Page,
but page
I,
5,
yeah,
page 5,
yeah,
8.
yep, page 5.
So
Okay, okay, so we're looking at page 5, everybody, and we're specifically looking on page 5 at section B6.
8.
I'm sorry, B7 and 8.
Yeah, again, it's ahead of ourselves here, but I'm just saying that it's in the regulations, but we're really working on the upfront section of definitions. So,
Mhm. Okay, I see what you're saying, and that's at page 5. Okay, so we're back to where we were. Excuse me. We're defining webinar. Does anyone have any additional corrections, comments about a webinar is defined as? Okay.
I think that's pretty good for webinar. I think we should really just flesh out the definition or whatever the new definition is going to be for the sort of on-demand version.
Okay. All right. So I've got an okay on a webinar. Online or virtual is defined as, that should be online or virtual courses.
but I think if we change the definition of ALF to online course, we can scratch that sentence. It won't be needed.
Okay. Okay. So we can just scratch ALF and call this second. I'm sorry, let me just find the right page here.
From the audience, Christy Ferb says, if it's helpful, they are often described as synchronous versus asynchronous. Synchronous
Yeah, I have
learning is online
this.
or distance education that happens in real time, often with a set of schedule / class or time and required login times, while asynchronous learning is at the learner's own pace, their time and schedule.
Right, I have that information. Asynchronous is independent, as
Right,
opposed
right.
to
On-demand?
synchronous, which is a group of students. So, guys, did you want me to retool this and add asynchronous, which is independent learning, because that's a part, or synchronous?
No,
Go
thank
ahead,
you.
Deb.
I think we could leave it, we'd include it in the definition, you know?
I'm sorry,
It's not words that
Jamie.
we've been using. I think it just would be very confusing. We could use the words attached to it, but I don't think I want to get into that. Start using instead of saying online course or webinar, synchronous and asynchronous. I think.
Yeah, I think we
You know,
should
the
use
thing,
on
yeah,
demand, right? On demand and online classes.
yeah, the thing about that though is, are we going to distinguish, and this might be too much of getting into the weeds with asynchronous and synchronous, because I did have that in my notes, whether or not the online course is an independent course or an online course for a group of students. Do we care about that?
No,
If
I don't think so.
because no, because if it's ask others to weigh in, because if it's online, I don't know whether it matters that it's just for independent learning, one person, or online open to a group of students.
Yeah, I think for our purposes, it doesn't matter.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. All right. I had it in my notes. Okay. So, Deb, I'm back to your comment, and I'm looking for ALF, and you say that I should take the definition of ALF and rename it online and include that in the definition.
Well, I'd like
That's your suggestion.
to discuss that and to just see if that definition now fits what we've been calling online course.
Okay. All right. So everybody take a look at the definition, the description of ALF. And I'm sorry, my print. Page 6. Talks about ALF. Those are the requirements, so that's not the definition.
Kathy Campbell, do you want to say something? Are you do you want to keep the term ALF?
Kathy's not on the call.
I am here.
She is.
Oh, you are? Okay, thank you. Good.
I'm going back and forth in my head because
Mhm.
the world has changed in the years since I last looked at this.
Mhm.
I think we're going to get tripped up with the assessment of learning for all online courses.
Okay, then you're at page 8. Oh, I'm sorry, you're at page 6, paragraph 8.
Because
So, Kathy, are you saying that paragraph 8 needs to be revamped as well? I know first of all, it should be credit for online courses. We need to change ALF throughout. ALF is now, I think, alternative learning format is now online. We're designating that online courses. So I'll make that change.
That's my opinion. I want everyone to agree to that, including Kathy.
Okay,
I mean,
well,
that's my suggestion.
I think that works. We just need to add sort of a companion section everywhere that we mention ALF now online with another section that what the requirements are for webinars.
because webinar we're considering is an actual live course as if you're there.
Correct.
Yes.
So
That's
it's
the current
recorded.
definition.
Recorded course is the
A
online.
webinar, if you look at a webinar, Kathy, on page 1, it's highlighted. And so that was the definition I had suggested. But what Jamie has suggested is that, this is the thing. All webinars are online, but not all online courses are webinars. As we've used the term webinar in practice, it has meant a live presentation, which is why courses that are approved as webinar and online.
Yep.
If the request is made by the continuing ed provider.
Should we
Okay.
modify the term and call it a live webinar, just so there's no confusion that it's?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think,
Yes, I had the same thought, Jamie.
Well, the definition says on a live online event, and for online course, it says this refers to any electronic recording. So the definition distinguishes between the two.
Oh, no, I agree. I'm just trying to come up with a term that makes it obvious from looking at it, what the difference
Right.
is.
Right,
How does
and people talk about on-demand webinars. So that would not be the same thing that we're thinking of, but they use the term webinar to mean something that is on demand. So we need to be careful, because then people will just say, well, you said webinar. And so I want to make that distinction somehow.
Okay, well, the definition says a webinar is defined as live, as it should be, as a live online event. Okay, so doesn't that suffice, or go ahead, Gail?
Yeah, I'm just saying it should. It's there, but I'm just saying that I've seen the term frequently that it says on-demand webinars. And so using the term, we need to be very careful. We have a definition that says how it's defined in our regs, and that's fine, but just realize that people may not have that same notion in their heads. So we want to make it clear every time we use it, maybe say live webinar or something like that. I don't know. I mean, I can go either way. I agree with the fact that it's in there as a live event. I just don't want there to be confusion later on.
Okay, so would it help if I just said a live webinar is a live webinar is defined as if I just move the word live, would that make the change that people can agree to? Is that a sufficient distinction, I guess, is what I'm asking.
I think it might. I have to look at the whole thing at the same time, but I can't read I can't read the small print, so I have to have my own version up, which makes it harder.
Okay. Live webinar.
We're making our own definitions. If we've been promoting these as online webinar courses, we throw in live every time. It just seems burdensome.
Well, except that there's a limit to, we have to take into account that there are people out there using terms like on-demand webinars.
Yeah,
and
but
so
we're
we can't
not.
just say,
I'm
just saying, we need at some point to define it clearly so that nobody will come back later and say, well, mine's a webinar. We want them, in other words, the other ones are webinars too. They're just on-demand webinars. So the real distinction is not in the course part, it's actually in the live versus on demand.
Yeah. Okay, so what I'm hearing is that the broad category of web-based courses, that is what we used to call alternative learning format, is now being called an online course. Within the definition of online courses, there are two types, two subcategories: a webinar and an on-demand course, which is
That's what we need a definition for. We need to have the definition for that.
Okay, so it's online. ALF is now online, and we need a definition for on-demand courses. Is that right?
I think that might cover it.
And then there is a separate category, subcategory rather, of the webinar, and all you've asked me to do is add a live webinar is defined as an online event, and it's otherwise okay. or you guys need to see it. So I'll
No,
make that change.
hold on, yeah.
I'm sorry.
No, I was just gonna say it's defined as I'm not sure the event thing is, it could be, a live webinar is defined as is a live, and somehow I feel like it needs to say learning event. It's not just any event. It's a learning program or something. There has to, it's not, I'm not sure I like event there.
Okay, I'll work on that
Okay.
language.
Well, if you keep reading, is hosted and delivered by the board approved continuing ed, well, it's a board approved continuing ed course. So
Yeah, it shouldn't say course provide. There's a problem with course provider because we don't approve course providers. We approve courses. We've never approved providers.
Yeah, I know that. By a board approved continuing education course, and strike provider.
As a board approved, delivered, Beverly, if you say delivered as a board approved continuing ed course.
And delivered as a board approved continuing education course using webinar software and broadcast to a select group of individuals. Okay. All right. I'll retool that. I'll work on a definition because we're out of time. I'll work on a definition for online courses. And then we'll tackle this section again because Kathy, I wanted your input because you are the one who worked on this. And so I looked, and my records indicate that this is a version from August of 2016. And I didn't know if we were accepting all the changes or not. So this section will be on the agenda for the March 9th meeting again. I'll retool these formerly ALF definitions, and then we can talk about the other changes, and which ones we're accepting and deleting and all of that, so I can clean this up. Is that good?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yep, very well. I'm all set then. That concludes the regulations meeting.
So we'll begin the continuing ed meeting.
We should.
February 9th.
Yep.
12:33, it's beginning.
Hey, David, if we could arrive at a LSP board roll call.
Yes,
Order.
I was going to ask who's here from the board. I can see a few of you. Greg, Baruch, Millie, Kathy, Deb, Mark, Gail, Jamie. Anyone else?
We have not been able to get Kurt. I'm sorry,
Yeah,
David. We have not.
I've sent Kurt 3 invites. For some reason,
Okay, well,
he isn't able to get on.
yeah, okay.
And then Chris, can you tell us, Chris, who's here, who's on from the public?
Well, Kirk is watching right now. He's not in the staff meeting, but Gary Waldick, Kristen Lefebvre, Lori McCarthy, Nancy Fitzpatrick, Seth Molofsky, Wendy Rundle, and Wes Stimson.
Okay, thank you. So, review of draft minutes. I don't think there's anything to review.
Yeah, there was a set of draft minutes.
In the email from Barbara?
It should have been
I didn't
February
see
11th.
any. I didn't see any either, Dave.
She didn't send them.
I
I'm
don't
No.
sorry about that. She didn't send them. I will send them. They were, Chris, do you have them? She just didn't send them.
Minutes? No, I don't have any of the minutes.
Yeah.
So we'll review and approve them in March.
Sorry about that. They actually, yeah, they were, I sent them. Okay.
Old business, I assume we haven't heard back from some of the course providers from 2 weeks ago that we had asked for clarifications on.
The only email I got was from, I'm sorry, Mr. Malinsky. And I think I did, hold on, send him an email regarding what the board needed. He may have a question about that. He is on the call, on the phone, so we can ask him to pose his question. I did send him an email saying that the board had tabled the matter. I don't know whether or not he wants to be heard by the board.
Yeah, Seth is on the call, and we sent 2 back to EPOC or EPOC asking about what kind of polling they may have had or
Right.
additional measures to keep track of attendance.
Right. And what Mr. Malinsky has indicated was that attendance records for both programs were tracked by his GoToWebinar platform. They are also records are kept on log in and log out time, as well as the total time attended for all attendees. Certificates were issued based on the applicable total time. They indicated that EPOC conducted a course evaluation for each program and will maintain those records for the board's inspection. Both of the EPOC courses were offered as live webinars with the ability for the participants to ask questions throughout the program. There was no formal assessment of learning following the classes. There were informal polling questions included during the sessions to engage the attendees.
And isn't that all we require for a live webinar is the polling questions, right?
That's to be consistent with other ones that we've approved. We need the random polling questions. Anyone can log on to a GoToMeeting platform and then leave their computer for 2 hours. So that's the purpose of the random polling questions, and that it wasn't clear to us that that took place or not in the 2 courses. So that's what we were asking about. And they're saying that they did have them.
That was the last paragraph that I read. There was no formal assessment of learning,
Right.
but there were informal polling questions included during the session.
And
Right,
what does that mean? What does that mean, informal polling questions? Is that just asking people to answer a question?
I don't know, but let's ask, Mark, why don't you pose your question again? Mr. Malinsky is on the line.
Yeah,
Malofsky, I'm sorry, Mr. Malofsky. Go ahead, Chris.
He said, I can certainly be heard. I submitted a response to Beverly on 2/3/21. And then he said, yes, I am confirming we had polling questions for both classes.
Okay. Does that answer your question?
Can you expand on how the polling questions were executed? Was it verbal, or was it every participant had to hit a response?
Well, while we're waiting for Seth, I just want to say that what we've been doing on all of these is all of the alpha webinars I've done have just been polling questions in the middle that you can respond to. I mean, that's what we talk about with polling questions. So, I mean, this is consistent with what we've always used for other webinars.
Tied to attendance, right? You know, obviously we want to know.
Not the alpha ones. No, the alpha ones were you could respond or not. I mean, most people did, but you could respond or not.
So
no, they have to respond.
To get credit.
That doesn't. Well, then we've approved a ton of courses that you don't have to respond to. I've attended many myself.
It shouldn't be that way.
I understand, but I'm just telling everybody, when you do these, you don't have to respond. Most people do. They're very careful about it.
That's
so
true.
We don't want to propagate that. So we want to communicate that we do need to have that included in the attendance, so that we don't propagate this mistake. If I'm going to call it a mistake, if that happens.
I thought the polling questions were just for the recorded courses.
They are. That's right. They're not they were not intended. They don't have the same intent as the assessment of learning does for the on-demand courses, but they do pop up. They pop up so that people have to pay attention. But they're the same for every course. The LSPA courses are the same way, I think. And Wendy can respond to that. But
right, that's the purpose of them, to make sure people are still at their computer. And you don't have to answer the polling questions if you're not taking the course for credit.
Yeah,
I'm just saying. Yeah, but
I don't think there's somebody there who's tracking who's answering and who is not answering. I'm not sure that's a capacity of the administration of these courses.
Right, or some of them anyway. I know. I mean, I know that you could probably get that, but when we're asking people for polling questions, that is not the way they're being handled, I don't think, and we can check in the future. But as far as I know, to date, they have not been handled that way.
No.
So we should have instructions to the course providers that when they put these courses up, they make sure that the attendees understand they have to answer the polling questions if they're doing a live webinar.
Or what?
They don't get
then the attendance would not be. It's like somebody going to, in a classroom, somebody's going to the restroom and then not coming out in 2 hours time. We do dock them, right? Because there are proctors in the class. That's how we used to have it. It is essentially the same.
I want to speak.
Farouk, you can't ask somebody just like you can leave a webinar to go to the bathroom, you cannot. I mean, you should be able to leave your computer to go to the bathroom too. And if that's when the question pops up, you missed it. And it doesn't mean you missed any more than you would have in an actual course.
Yeah, but then
again, I agree.
No, Gail, there's not one question. There's always 5 or 7 questions.
Yes,
if all 5 of them,
I
am sorry. If they miss all 5 of them, I'm sorry. But if they miss 1 out of 5, that's fine.
I'm pretty sure.
Okay, then we're going to substantially. I think we might substantially change. It'll be different from what we've previously approved, and 2, we do have to ensure that the software that everyone is using then has the ability to track those polling questions in terms of who answers. So that's another. I'm just saying, for right now, we need to do it the way we've been doing it. And if it turns out everybody has that ability to track those polling questions, then fine. But we need to be careful that we're not setting a precedent that nobody can achieve, and then we don't have online courses, is all I'm saying.
Right. Mm-hmm.
I would say that the majority of the providers have the software and know if the attendees who are taking it for course have responded to all or the majority of the polling questions, and they therefore then give out the CEUs based upon that. They've logged in, they've logged out, and they've answered the polling questions. I would assume that most of the providers have that capability and have done that, and it's a part of their approval. Did Seth respond to the question that we had?
Yes, I am confirming we had polling questions for both classes.
We were specifically asking if they had a record of who had answered the polling questions of the attendees. And I'd be interested to hear from Wendy too, how the LSPA is, if they've been tracking it that way, or if we need to rethink about the way we're doing these requests.
While we're waiting, I always answer the questions because I thought I had to. I didn't realize I could even get credit without.
That was the intent as far as I was concerned.
Yeah,
I think that's how I read it as well.
I assumed that too, that if I didn't answer the polling questions, they'd record me as like not there. But while we were thinking about this, I don't remember in the workshops for the soils conference if we had polling questions, and we gave full credit for those. The most recent.
There were.
I think it might have depended on the
Not all of them.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mhm. Agreed. Some of them, I think at least one that I went to didn't have polling questions, but most of them did.
Yeah, but I just want to point that out, that I'm not sure that was communicated because I don't remember it in all of them.
I think the courses that I've taken, online, I vaguely recall it does say that you have to answer those polling questions for attendance, to confirm your attendance.
if you want
I
credit.
vaguely remember that. Yeah, something like that. Yeah, I remember that. It's a simple request. It's all software driven. They should be able to do it.
It is. I was going to say it isn't a simple request. It depends on the software. You have to have the software set up to do that.
I tell you, most of them are, I bet you, have been doing it and have the capability. Should we move on to new business?
Okay, well, have you decided on? You have to decide on the EPOC courses. Are you going to approve them, or are you looking for more information, or what?
Said for the site Remede class, we tracked the answers to polling questions. For the high-res classes, many polling questions were asked, but by a different polling system, which did not record the answers. I believe most everyone responded to the questions. And then Wendy Rundle said the LSPA tracks attendance and responses to polling questions.
Yeah.
But responses to polling questions aren't the same as tracking individuals responding. And that's what we're talking about. So that's what we need to make clear, not just the answers, not just the overall answers, because that's a different thing, or the number that answer. We're asking for it, whether it can track individuals that are responding.
That's what they're saying. They're tracking the individuals that they respond to the polling.
I don't think that is not what I heard from what was read.
Let's get back.
Well, with software like that, computer software, if you're recording the answer, it happens in real time. You can't go back and look at your browser and say, okay, this question was asked a half hour ago, I'm going to answer it now. It doesn't work like that. Yeah. When polling questions are asked in software, it's usually a timed event where the question pops up, you need to answer it, and then it's recorded in the software. That's the way polling software works.
But
here's an important, no, wait a second. Here's this important piece. When we do the classes and we proctor them, there's a requirement. If you miss more than 2 hours or 1 hour, you don't know. We started docking the number of credits that they get, depending on how many hours they attend. And at one point, we actually don't. So this is part of our regulation that we have to establish somehow how many hours they have attended a class. And polling question is one way of somehow achieving that. So every course provider, when they say that we meet the requirements, they have to meet that requirement where they have to establish that, yes, this person has substantially attended 7 out of 8 hours, so he can get 8 credits. You know, if that person attended, you know,
And that's what providers do. They know what individuals. They don't. They're not. They're not answering. They know what individuals answer the polling questions, not the answers to the polling questions.
You're right.
Actually, they record, well, no, we want to confirm that they don't just record the answers to the polling questions, that they confirm who answered, that the software has the capability of confirming who answered.
Oh, absolutely. That's the way it works. You're logged in
They
as
do.
a certain user. That's, I mean, yeah, you're
I just
linked to
assumed
your
everyone-
account. I mean,
So
you
the
can,
question to
you won't.
the question to Seth was, have they tracked the polling questions, because they have to establish and they have to give us the information that, yes, this person has attended 2 out of the 2 hours credit, because if they miss, you know, more than certain minutes or certain hours, they have not attended. So it's their responsibility to, and one of the ways we ask them is to do it with the polling questions. So they have to it's their responsibility to track it to the individuals, and at the beginning of the course to the end of the course, and then issue a certificate based on that. And we honor that. That's basically how it should be working.
So are you establishing a framework and or a bar that, say, every 10 minutes a question randomly pops up on a user's desktop and they need to respond to it, or they get docked for 10 minutes? Because any software will do that, and it might not record your answer, but it will definitely record whether you respond or not. And if that's the case, maybe you should say, here's what we require. This is what we want you to do. You know, for every hour, we need at least 2 or 3 polling questions per hour. To come up and say, okay, well, I mean, these are the questions that people are going to ask, and these are the, you know, you need to have some kind of established consistency on how you're going to track this stuff, and
Chris,
some kind.
Say it this way: not every 10 minutes. Say that, you know, in half an hour, 45 minutes, randomly there will be a question.
Right, but
instead of making
what I'm saying, I'm not. Right. I'm
Right?
not saying I'm right. Exactly. I'm not saying what it should be. What I'm saying is you guys need to decide what you feel would be the best situation, and tell these the people that are giving these training courses, look, we require a minimum of X, Y, and Z to make sure people are sitting in class when they're supposed to be. They can set up their software to do whatever they want it to do, as long as they have a framework to put down to, as opposed to saying, oh, well, you need polling questions, or you need to record answers, or you don't need to record answers. Just put it down. Here's what we require.
Okay, hold on, everybody. I think we're drifting off into the regulations, proposed regulations in terms of defining criteria and what we expect. So I have, just for the sake of being able to move on, I have added defined polling questions as an issue for the next reg meeting, because fortunately we're working on continuing ed regs. And polling questions, I agree, we need to set clear criteria. So do you want to approve EPOC's 2 courses that were tabled based on the information that they provided? Because they can't go back and redo or undo, or, I mean, they can't unring the bell. That's what I'm saying. So the issue before us is whether or not we want to approve the 2 EPOC courses based on the information that they've provided. And I'll work on the definition of polling questions and all of that.
I don't have
I
the
think-
course numbers or names in front of me, but I make a motion to approve the 2 EPOC courses that were proposed in the January meeting.
I
Do
second.
you want the names? Do you want the names of those courses? The
Doesn't matter.
EPOC courses?
Doesn't matter to me. There was only 2 last.
Well, I know, but it matters because we're on record. So, recording, we don't have the visual. So, the 2 EPOC courses are in situ remediation, monitoring programs, considerations, and design. And the second EPOC course is putting high-resolution data to work, targeted conventional and multi-level monitoring well-designed.
Okay, so I amend my motion with those 2 titles.
Second.
Second,
Second.
Any discussion
All right.
on the board?
I would just say, just for the record here, because the polling questions were provided and we confirmed that was the case, I think this discussion has made it clear that we need a little bit more specificity as to what we're looking for in terms of the timing and number and the fact that they're tracked to attendance. But they did meet the requirements as we gave them when we provided our guidance previously. So I agree that we should approve them now.
Can I go through the roll call? A yes is approval. Greg,
yes,
Farouk,
Yes.
David is yes. Millie,
Yes.
Kathy,
yes,
Deb,
Yes.
Mark,
Yes.
Gail,
yes.
and Jamie.
Yes.
And I assume Kirk's
Kirk.
on.
Kirk, yes.
Kirk, thank you. Glad you
Yes.
could join us. So for new business, we have 3 courses that are proposed. The first one is an LSPA course this afternoon, membership meeting, 1 technical credit. It's proposed as a live webinar and an online on-demand course. I think
Motion to approve?
second. Any discussions?
Second,
Public or the board? Oh, I'm sorry. I was looking at the wrong one. Oh, no. Sorry, I was looking at course announcements, course approval requests. We don't need to go through the announcements. The first one is Glacial Geology of Southern New England, 4 technical credits, LSPA, live webinar and online. I make a motion to approve it with the addition that they have at least 4 random polling questions.
And that they will track it to establish the full attendance.
Yeah, I think the LSPA has that capability and has done it.
Wonderful. Second,
Any discussion about this course approval request, number 1?
I have a question. You've asked that you've indicated you're moving to approve the course for 4 technical credits with random polling questions and what else?
With at least 4 random polling questions and that the responses are tracked by each individual to make sure they've attended, which I assume is done, but that's something that Farouk had added to it.
Okay, so the responses are tracked to monitor attendance, and you said at least 4 random?
For a 4-hour course, sure. If other people have another idea, we can discuss it.
Yep, because that wasn't part of the vote, so I think you're gonna have to put it to another vote.
It's part of my motion.
and I seconded it with my
We
addition.
haven't voted yet.
We're about to.
So there's any further discussion on it? So I'll do a roll call to approve it.
I'm sorry, Dave. I think the actual write-up, as it shows, it says 10 assessment of learning, multiple choice or true or false questions for completion at the end.
For online.
Yeah, that's for the on-demand version,
That's
I
for the
think.
on-demand online course. The polling question that we added some details on is for the live webinar. That makes sense?
Got it.
Yep. So basically, it is addressed except the 4. So the specific number of questions is what we're getting at here.
Yeah. Polling questions are always for the live webinar for attendance. Assessment of learning is for the online on-demand courses.
Yeah, absolutely. I was just referring to the fact that LSPA needs to be advised that we're requesting 4 polling questions.
So I guess is approving.
He said at least 4.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So I think you should restate your motion. Everybody's muddled now. So I want to make sure that
the motion is to approve the LSPA Glacial Geology of Southern New England 4 technical credit course to be offered this spring as a live webinar and as an on-demand online course. For the live webinar, there should be at least 4 random polling questions, and that they track the polling questions being completed by individuals who are going for the CEUs. And Farouk seconded. So a yes is approving it. Greg?
Yes.
Farouk?
Yes.
David is yes. Millie?
Yes.
Kathy?
Yes.
Deb?
Yes.
Mark?
Yes.
Gail?
Yes.
Jamie?
Yes.
Kirk? The second course is a Mass DEP offering, a redo or refresher, 1 regulatory credit and 1 technical credit, live webinar, on-demand online course. So 2 hours.
Second, motion to approve.
Second.
Is there a second?
Second.
And are you asking for the same requirements that for the live webinar, there be polling questions, and at least how many, or are you setting a number, or?
I had to look at what it's only 2 hours.
Yeah, Dave, so what it says is track individual participation and polling that will occur during the webinar and or assessment following the webinar through webinar generated reporting. And then track individual Q&As as well as chat participation through webinar generated reporting. So I think it's just silent on the number of questions.
So for 2 hours, what do you want to say? 2 or 3 at a minimum polling questions?
It's up to you.
Fair, I mean.
It sounds like we're establishing policy here. Should we, I mean, I know we should probably talk about.
Yeah, I'm taking notes, Jamie, on that. So it'll come up at the next meeting. Yep.
Yeah, we'll talk about it during regs, but I would maybe propose one per half hour would be just going forward, maybe would make sense. I mean, 2 polling questions for a 2-hour course seems a little thin to me, but.
But you have to
Let's
think
say-
about how it's going to be used. If people don't answer 2 out of 5, how are you going to give them credit?
I think an hour, on 1 hour is pretty good,
Every half hour is too often.
Yeah.
For the
1 hour is
presenters.
pretty good.
For the-
Okay.
As long
Course
as they're
providers-
randomly spaced, I don't think it matters. 1 hour is fine if they're randomly placed within that hour.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
agree.
1 hour is fine.
Okay.
Okay. So,
All right. So minimum of 2 is the motion then, right?
At least 2 polling questions, yes.
all right. And so just to be clear, they are required to have 2 polling questions for the live webinar and have the responses tracked to maintain attendance?
Per individual.
Or is that, I'm sorry, David, what?
Per individual, yes, which is what they're already doing, I'm pretty sure.
Okay, and is that for the live webinar or is that
Yes.
for the online course?
No, just for that live webinar, there's an assessment of learning for the online on-demand course.
Yep. It's
Those are the polling questions. Are you using polling questions as an assessment of learning, or are they separate and distinct? I'm just trying to figure out how to be specific when I send the attendance cert forms.
So like all our previous approvals, the polling questions are for the live webinar for attendance. The polling questions are not used when the person's taking it on demand. The assessment of learning is used.
All right, got it.
Okay. So
Thank you.
a yes is approving. Greg?
Yes.
Farouk?
Yes.
David is yes. Millie?
yes.
Kathy?
Yes.
Deb?
Yes.
Mark?
Yes.
Gail?
Yes.
Jamie?
Yes.
Kirk?
Yes.
The last one we got is an EBC, case studies and innovative approaches to PCB remediation, something that took place in January. I only received an agenda. I didn't receive a request. Is that true?
I only have an
I
agenda.
don't.
Yep.
I don't.
So
I don't know.
it's an incomplete request. So it needs to be tabled until next month.
We should direct them to answer the kinds of questions we've been just talking about how they're tracking.
All right. And you want to see an agenda.
No, we have the agenda. I mean, normally EBC,
So what is,
they have their form, the request, where they fill in all the necessary information about how they're tracking and how many credits they want and all that. And then they attach the agenda. We only got the agenda. We didn't get the actual request with all the necessary background information.
the actual, all right. All right.
They either didn't provide it or we didn't get it.
Obviously. All right. I'll find out.
Thank you.
EBC is tabled.
Yep. And then there's 3 course announcements that have been approved. So we don't need to reapprove them.
Well, I did have a question about them on question about numbers 2 and 3. Number 2, introduction to short forms for human health risk assessment was offered last, pardon me, on April 14th, 2020 for 4 technical credits. And I wanted to make sure that it's the same instructors and everything is the same. Otherwise, it needs reapproval. So if Wendy could respond. And I have the same question for number 3, which was last offered in November of 2018. And I wanted to make sure that the courses were the same.
Well, while we wait for a response, the next meeting is March 9th. I don't think there's anything else to discuss.
Chris, did you get a response from Wendy?
Not yet.
Okay, thank you.
Oh, okay. She just sent. Let's see. It was never offered in 2020 because of the pandemic. Same instructors, agenda, etc. now. And then
Okay.
she said same answers as above, meaning the second course. Nothing has changed, or we would have reapplied.
Thank you.
All set.
Okay, the meeting's ending at 1:11.
We don't have to vote, right? Do we?
Nope, not for announcements.
During the board meeting.
We're all set.
My internet connection is spotty, folks. I might get tossed out.
Are we ready to move to the professional conduct?
Yep. I'm all set, Jimmy.
Okay. Calling to order the professional conduct committee meeting at 1:12. For old business, we'll wait your report on the status of the CRTs, Beverly.
Yep. 05C will be discussed in executive session today. I do not have a report on 08C or 12C. I will have a report on those cases March 9th, 2021, which is our next meeting. And that's also, so it's 08C, 12C, and 18C01. I'll be reporting on those cases March 9th. 18C02, we have decided on meeting dates for those courses, and they will, I'm sorry, for that prosecution, and they will, the CRT meeting will take place the week of February 23rd. We're just settling on dates for those. 20C01 and 20C02. Again, I'm starting to interview witnesses, and I have set dates in early March to interview the LSP involved in those two cases. And that's all I have.
Anything on 20C04?
No, you know, 20C04 is the case where I need to go into the office and redact as I have reported in the past, there are a lot of documents, and I need to redact those documents so that they can be sent to the CRT. So that case isn't moving either. I'll see what I can do about getting into the office, or maybe I don't know. The problem is that the license for the redaction software is only on one machine, and that machine is located at Winter Street. And they only purchased it for one machine, so I don't know if they can transfer it to my laptop. I'll see if I can do that by next month. If they can transfer that software to my laptop, I can redact the document and get that case moving. So I'll have a report on the software, the redaction software, for next.
So just to clarify, Beverly, you mentioned redacting it for the CRT. Have we actually established a CRT for that one, or we still just need to take the initial review of the complaint to decide
We
whether
need to take a, go ahead, I'm sorry.
Yeah, we haven't actually established a CRT is what I was asking.
Nope.
Okay.
Nope, we haven't. So I've got to get that, those documents. As I indicated before, it's a complaint from a private citizen who filed a lot of documents. And so the problem is getting them redacted. So I'll have an answer by March 9th on whether or not they can transfer the software to my laptop here at home. If they cannot do that, I'll have to go into the office and redact it. But I'll make sure that I have a better report, more of a report on 20C04 next month.
Thank you. Is there any new business?
Of course. No, I have none.
Okay. All right. The next meeting will be, this is the agenda.
Yeah, that
still has the February date on it. So the next meeting will be March 9th, right? Is that what we said?
Yes. Sorry, that's a typo. It should be March 9th. Yes.
At 12 p.m. All right. So with that, then I will adjourn the Professional Conduct Committee meeting at 1:17.
Yeah.
Thank you. So ready to go? Okay. So good afternoon. I'd like to welcome the LSP board, everyone to this LSP board virtual meeting. And as stated prior, this meeting is being recorded. I'd like to call the meeting to order at 1:18 p.m. So next in order is announcements. And I just wanted to read verbatim an email that I received from Commissioner Martin Suberg, dated Wednesday, February 3rd, 2021 at 12:28 p.m. Basically where he states, quote, "Dear Millie, this will acknowledge receipt of the board members' correspondence. I will review it and have a response shortly. Marty," end quote. This is with regards to the trip, contemplating a trip request. Any additional announcements by the board members or anyone from the public? If not, we'll move into the agenda. Any additions, deletions, or other changes to reflect the current draft agenda? My only comment would be if Beverly, you could kindly provide us with the status of drafting of the past board meeting minutes.
I don't have an update on that.
Okay.
You're talking about the virtual board meeting minutes, Millie? Because
yes, we were going to be engaged in services of someone that actually would be translating, well, redacting.
Yeah, I'm working on the minutes we're up to the first virtual meeting. So I'm working on getting those ready for posting.
Okay, great, thank you. So with that, I move that we adopt the agenda if there are no comments or additions, deletions.
Second.
Okay, so let's do this differently here. If anyone is in opposition of adoption, let me know. Otherwise, we will carry on. Okay, we'll move forward with the agenda as is. Okay, so item 4, decisions with regards to the licensing of the applicants. We received the most comprehensive recent attachment that basically was dated February 9, 2021, and it contains 4 different dockets. The first renewal docket speaks to 12 LSPs that have completed all of the requirements for the renewal and now have a renewal date of January 30. I'd like to make a motion to approve this renewal docket.
Second.
All those in favor, please say yes when I call your name during this roll call. Greg?
Yes.
Farouk?
Yes.
David?
Yes.
Millie is a yes. Kathy?
Yes.
Deb?
Yes.
Mark?
Yes.
Gail?
Yes.
Jamie?
Yes.
And Kirk?
Yes.
Motion carries. The same with renewal docket number 2. It's one LSP that has completed the requirement within the 1 year. Now he actually has a renewal date of July 30. I'd like to make a motion to approve this renewal docket as presented.
Second.
So moved.
For those in favor, please say yes. Greg?
Yes.
Farouk?
Yes.
David?
Yes.
Millie is a yes. Kathy?
Yes.
Deb?
Yes.
Mark?
Yes.
Gail?
Yes.
Jamie?
Yes.
And Kirk?
Yes.
Motion carries. Renewal docket number 3 consists of 1 LSP that has completed the course requirements within a 90-day extension, and now a renewal date of October 30, 2023. I'd like to make a motion to approve this renewal docket as presented.
Second.
Those in favor, please say yes when I call your name. Greg?
Yes.
Farouk?
Yes.
David?
Yes.
Millie's a yes. Kathy?
Yes.
Deb?
Yes.
Mark?
Yes.
Gail?
Yes.
Jamie?
Yes.
And Kirk?
Yes.
Motion carries. Finally, renewal docket number 4. This speaks to 5 LSP that have requested a 9 extension. And now we'll have a renewal date of April 30, 2021. So I move to approve this docket as presented.
Second.
Those in favor, please say yes when I call your name. Greg?
Yes.
Farouk?
Yes.
David?
Yes.
Millie is a yes. Kathy?
Yes.
Deb?
Yes.
Mark?
Yes.
Gail?
Yes.
Jamie?
Yes.
And Kirk?
Yes.
Motion carries. Thank you. Okay, so I'm going to turn the agenda to Beverly now with regards to the application review panel number 314.
There is a meeting scheduled of application review panel for Wednesday, February 24th, 2021. So we'll be reporting at the March 9th meeting.
Great, thank you. And if you don't mind, Beverly, just continuing on with regards to the other matters, agenda items 5 through 8, please.
Yep, there are 471 LSPs. That number may vary. Had some fees come in since last Friday. There are 3 inactive LSPs. The annual fee report, I'm going to skip this month until March 9th, simply because the annual fees are due March 1. So I'll be better able to report on the number of folks who have not paid their fees at the March 9th meeting. As for the January quarterly fee report, there were 38 LSPs who were billed during this period. 25 of the January renewals have been completed. 8 have not responded, and there have been 5 payments without the application having been received. But I do want to say that, as you can see from the docket that Barbara sent, the most recent docket, those things are coming in all the time. People are still not meeting the January 30th date. And again, I'm going to urge the board, when it looks at the regulations with respect to renewal, that we put some teeth into that regulation so that people who, and I understand this is COVID, so this is very different circumstance, but this happens every renewal period. The renewals are due by close of business on April 30th, January 30th, July 30th, and October 30th. And we're constantly receiving things late. So, thought. The exam committee meeting, I had thought we would get to that in February, but I'm trying to move the cases, the prosecutions along. So I don't think that we're going to be able to schedule an exam committee meeting before March. And I'll have a date to report specifically on the exam committee meeting at the March 9th board meeting.
Okay, thank you, Beverly.
You're welcome.
Okay. Item 9, the Continuing Education Committee report. I'd like to invite David to provide us with a summary report from today's committee discussions.
Yes, at today's meeting, we didn't have the February 2020 meeting minutes to review. We'll do that next month in March. We tabled one class request, one course request. We approved 2 courses that were requested, and we approved 2 from last month's meeting and list of requests. There were 3 announcements of courses, and the next meeting is March 9th.
Great, thank you.
Motion to approve the continuing education committee.
Second.
Dropping out.
It was a second.
It was a second. So I will. You want to go ahead, or you want me to proceed with the roll call, Dave?
Excuse me?
Would you like for me to proceed with the roll call?
Yes.
Okay. So Greg?
Yes.
Farouk?
Yes.
David?
Yes.
Melissa, yes. Kathy?
Yes.
Deb?
Yes.
Mark?
Yes.
Gail?
Yes.
Jamie?
Yes.
And Kirk?
Yes.
Motion carries. Thank you, everyone. So agenda item 10, professional conduct committee review. At this time, I'd like to have Jamie provide us with a summary of the report from today's committee discussions.
Sure. We just had a review of the outstanding cases. Beverly is going to be providing updates on several at the next meeting, and we have an executive session scheduled for this afternoon for 05C07. Next meeting is March 9th. And we did not take any action that requires a vote of the board.
Thank you, Jamie. Much appreciated. So moving on to agenda item number 11, I invite Beverly to please provide us with, just lead that conversation under the other business agenda title.
With respect to the regulations, committee met at 12 o'clock. We went over 309 CMR 3.09, specifically the former alternative learning format, and we've made some decisions about where we're going next with respect to definitions as to webinar and online courses, and changing the nomenclature and putting in specific requirements with respect to assessment of learning and polling questions. To be continued. With respect to budget, personnel, and fees, interviews are ongoing. And with respect to the Attorney General's Division of Open Government, I really wanted to just highlight a couple of things. As usual, I'm not going to read this to you, but this was really an important open meeting law newsletter, in that they talked about deliberation on board meeting deliberations on via email and social media. And so on page 2, the Attorney General's office has set out a definition that includes email, electronic communications between board members, and whether or not they count as deliberations. So if you look at page 3, they have set out some examples of things that are prohibited, one-way communications, and some things that are permissible. So I think that I just ask that people take a look at the specific items with respect to deliberation and what they include, and one-way communications between board members and responses. If you have questions, I'll be able to answer them next month. I want to give you time to look at it and see if you have any questions, in case we have to further consult with the Division of Open Government. Under the determinations regarding deliberations, a number of decisions came out in 2020 that constituted violations, where chairs communicated with a quorum of the public body, where requests were sent to staff members. The Open Meeting Law Decision 2020-136, where a member emailed the quorum of the public body. And I know these are, I'm running through them very quickly, but we can talk about them in a lot more detail at the next meeting after you've had more time to look at them. The last one I wanted to highlight was the Open Meeting Law Decision 2020-83, where a quorum of public body members deliberated via email regarding the operation of the board or the entity. Again, if you have questions, specific questions, I'll be able to answer them or get you answers from the Division of Open Government for the March 9th meeting. That was all I had.
Thank you. That's really helpful. And in fact, I wanted to ask you, Beverly, based on your understanding of these open meeting laws, et cetera, and particularly this topic on deliberation via email, wondering if I should forward along to you and or the entire board, or just you for dissemination to the board, Commissioner Suber's response to the board request. This is dated 2/3/2021.
I think that it should be included as part of the documents used during the meeting.
Okay.
Just as we normally do with any committee meeting, we list the documents that were used. So what you can do is send it to me and I'll make it part of the packet for next month so that everybody can see it.
Terrific. Thank you. Will do.
Okay, I had a comment from Wendy Rundle. Are interviews ongoing for both the general counsel and the investigator position? Can you please provide more information, such as are these the first round of interviews or second? Any offers made, sense of timeline?
I'm not going to address any of those issues about the positions other than to say interviews are ongoing. And I'm sorry, what was Wendy's question again? She wanted to know whether or not second interviews were being conducted.
Well,
Chris,
no, she just said, can you provide more information, such as are these the first round of interviews or second? Are any offers have been made, sense of timeline? That's all she was saying. She just wanted to know where in the process you might be.
Mm-hmm. I'm interviewing. That's where I am.
Very well. So future virtual meeting will be held on March 9, 2021 at 12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And as such, this meeting concludes. I'm closing it out at 1:37 p.m.
So moved.
Millie, could I interrupt? This is Greg. We're going into executive session, is that correct?
Yeah, but I think we need to
Great.
close.
Well, I can make a motion that we leave open session and go into executive session for the purpose of, I don't know the purpose, so maybe do we,
The purpose of executive session is to discuss litigation strategy with respect to 05C, 07.
so I move that we leave open session and go into executive session for the purpose of discussing pending litigation. To have these discussions in open meeting would be at the disadvantage of the board.
Second.
So please affirm yes when I call your name. Greg,
Yes.
Farouk,
Yes.
Dave,
Yes.
Millie is a yes. Kathy,
Yes.
Deb,
Yes.
Mark,
Yes.
Gail,
Yes.
Jamie,
Yes.
Kirk.
Yes.
So we're closing out the open virtual board meeting and entering into executive session.